Yo, so this one is near and dear to my heart, you guys. This is a friend of mine, a buddy of mine. I wish you guys could really see me and Sky's text thread. We text all the time about life, about ball. I mean, he was one of the first people to text me my birthday. Really, my friend. Now, that being said, what a lot of people don't know about Skywalker still, if you watch the show, maybe you know, and make sure you guys are subscribed and make sure you guys catch him every morning. But not only is he a friend, he actually pushes me and my football knowledge to the brink. And I mean, and he doesn't hang himself on, no, I don't want you to be humble.
Home.
I'm a pop for you. I'm a pop this pop for you. Sky, he doesn't claim to be some film expert, but he actually is really smart. When we're talking draft stuff, I'm like, Sky, what do you see here? Sky hit me back. I didn't like this. I could have. We're talking about running backs. He was one of the first people to put me on a Marshawn Lloyd, and even Marshawn Lloyd being from my area. I'm like, you know what? Sky's right. Lloyd can play. So we've had these instances a lot. So he did an extremely informative deep dive on Mike Zimmer's defense, who he wants to be. And I got to say, I wanted to bring those thoughts to this channel. So without further ado, you guys know the face. Skywalker Steele. How you doing, buddy?
What's the king? My I had to put the beep. I don't know. I don't want to get
Go
choked
ahead,
with
dude, bro. Go ahead.
it. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to talk about this. I told you this behind the scenes. Ever since they thought about hiring Mike Zimmer, I started to look into his scheme and who he is as a coach. Because I remember when we played him a few years ago when his
Yes.
last year in Minnesota, I kind of took a look at his scheme, but it's a little different when you only got 2-3 days to prepare as opposed to weeks and months to prepare. And every time I go back to look at Zim's scheme, I find something different, something to get excited about. I just hope, we got enough time to implement a lot of these things because he's got a really good defensive scheme, bro.
Wow. And Scott, the time part is very key because normally sometimes it takes a defensive coordinator maybe about 2 years to get things going to draft who he needs in. With this Cowboys personnel, however, I do believe with the draft we just had mixed with who Mike Zimmer wants to be schematically, I think that it can kind of work. But before we even get that far, Sky, I want to peel back the curtains on Mike Zimmer's philosophy.
Hmm.
Okay. So if you could sum up who Mike Zimmer is, and this is a broad question, and we'll get so how I'm going to set this up is we're going to talk players, we're going to talk every level of the defense. But before we talk every level of the defense, if you could just sum up who Zimmer is for the people who may not know scheme before we get too far in the weeds and we'll show some film. Is he a bend but don't break type defense? Is he a multiple defense? Dan Quinn he's gonna show you cover one, he's gonna show you cover three, and he wants to play fast. So, Scott, to you, who is Mike Zimmer? What's his thinking defensively? What's his mindset defensively?
Man, if I've had to sum it up into a couple words, it's disciplined chaos.
Okay.
Right. I don't want to use creative chaos because then you start thinking about mad scientists, right? Like Rob Ryan and God, hell, even Dan Quinn was a bit of a mad scientist from time to time. But Zim is huge on discipline, but he's not going to stray away from being creative in his looks in the sense of changing the pictures and things like that. And we'll probably get into that a little bit more. But, he old school coach, right? Hard nosed, tough coach that preaches discipline, technique, and focusing on the small things that'll lead to bigger things, as opposed to, and this is no knock on Dan Quinn and Joe Witten, those boys, but it was, if you remember, it was all about the ball, the ball, the ball, the ball.
Yes.
And sometimes, the Cowboys were great at getting the ball, but Zim has told us that, we may not get the ball as much, but we're going to remain, disciplined in getting to the rock. And then that will create the turnovers when it happens. But Zim is just a tough, hard nosed, all about technique, all about discipline foots. But when you really peel back the layers of his scheme, it does require you to be smart. It does require you to know what the hell you're doing out there. But if you do, man, it can be a really damn good defense. And he had those in Minnesota and Dallas and Cincinnati. Everywhere he's been, he's had good defenses.
I want to stay somewhere. Everybody who's just joining, this is Skywalker Steele. He's doing an in-depth breakdown, summer series type breakdown on Mike Zimmer, and I really appreciate him. He kind of did it on his channel. Make sure you guys go subscribe to his Sky. Catch him every morning. Phenomenal football mind.
Thank you,
Sky Steele, what will be the biggest difference between Dan Quinn's defense and Mike Zimmer's defense?
Well, first off, let me say this about the differences in their situations. Remember, Dan Quinn came in taking over a franchise worst defense.
Yes.
So expectations are going to be different, right?
Yes.
Like Dan, 2020 defense was awful. He comes in, we would have took anything that was better, and he took it beyond better. We had one of the better defenses in the league, and then the next year it got even better. But just from a schematic standpoint, you talked about it. DQ is going to show you cover 3. He's going to show you cover 1, and he's really not going to change it up too much, man. When you peel seriously, when you peel back these layers, it's even more eye popping. I went and dug a little bit deeper on some of the numbers on how the Cowboys played. So 1 high shell, foots, 1 high shell, 2 high shell. You want to explain to the people what that is in case they don't know, right? Not everybody knows.
So 1 high shell is 1 safety in the middle of the field. Okay, it's going to be some form of either cover 1 or cover 3, but it's 1 safety in the middle of the field, giving you that pre-snap look and probably not changing it.
Yeah. And a 2 high shell.
Oh, 2 high shell. Yeah, a 2 high shell is
2 safeties
split safeties. Yeah.
Normally,
middle of the field open. So I use that with kids I'm coaching, and Sky say middle of the field open, 2 high, middle of the field close, 1 high. It could turn to different looks pre-snap. That's what we talk about. Multiple can go cover 4, cover 6, drop 8. You get to that, some of that stuff normally out of a 2 high look, but it just depends on who's the DC and how he wants to get to those looks.
And our former DC, Dan Quinn, it was infamous here in Dallas in running a ton of cover 1, a ton of 1 high shell. 55% of the time in 2023, bro. That was 4th most in the NFL. So if it's 4th most running, 1 high, 2 high shell was 36% of the time, which was 27th in the NFL. And,
great nugget.
And the thing about it, it was never like, okay, we're in 1 high and we're going to change the picture. Didn't do it. After the snap, they ranked 31st in the National Football League in middle of the field open coverage. 31st. Okay. They were 2nd least using 2 safeties after the snap. So when you get to weeks, 11, 12, 13, and you have tendencies, quarterbacks and coordinators are looking at this saying, okay, when they show me this picture, this is the picture I'm getting. It's not changing. Whereas Zimmer, he's going to change the picture, and he's going to change it quite often, and sometimes at all 3 levels of the defense. And you're going to bring up the safety situation a little bit later. But, that's what I think is going to be one of the biggest differences schematically is Zim is going to do a lot of different things with his DBs, with the front 7, whereas Dan Quinn really only focused on the front 7, all those twists and stunts and the free play they were allowed to have. So I think you'll notice it too. I think a layman can notice or will notice the difference in how Zimmer uses the DBs, the secondary, and incorporating it with the front 7, as opposed to when Dan Quinn did it. We saw so many times, Foots. It's just Malik Hooker on the roof.
That's it.
All game.
Yeah.
Right. And we're running man. Cowboys ran man more than any team in the league. They ran zone, bottom 3rd of the league. So you'll see Mike Zimmer switch that up. Sometimes he'll run combo coverages. On one side might be cover 2. On the other side might be cover 4. It'll be so many different things, because he's trying to confuse the quarterback to hold the rock for 1 tick of a second or make the wrong read. This is his words. He came out in the press conference and said, hey, usually get a lot of turnovers from quarterbacks making the wrong read. And Dan Quinn, I keep saying Dan Quinn, Mike Zimmer is going to try to do that a lot with his coverages alone. We ain't even talking about the front 7 yet.
So, and I'll say this. I think that people have gotten so used to pressure that they don't understand when you give a clean pitcher to an OC like um, Sean McVay or anybody from
LaFleur.
that tree, LaFleur,
Yeah.
Shanahan, anybody from that tree, and Ben Johnson, those guys who know what you're gonna do pre-snap. And Sky just gave you the numbers. Fourth in the league, 1-3. When you're in a pre-snap, when you're pre-snap, you have one safety middle field, you're getting one or you're getting three. And so the problem with that is good OCs know how to attack that. If you're just gonna, if you, and especially last with the chalk OCs, who Shanahan, he's gonna design things
Oh,
to get. Yeah, that's what he's gonna design. He's gonna scheme you. When you see a tight end running free on that leak in the Packers game, that's because the pre-snap looks didn't change or they don't change, or you try to do a wholesale change like Dallas did in the playoff game, and guys were just confused. Guys running wide open. So what Scott laid out for you guys is it's really peeling back the curtains as to why this defense. And I'll say this: me and Sky, we're talking about text thread. We were texting about some of the things that concerned us around the Bills game. I know the Bills game, Sky. I started to text you like, I
you're
don't
talking about
know.
Cook right away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The most dangerous player in that game was Cook, and he went out there and killed it.
Yeah, and so some of the looks started to get stagnant, and that was where I said, man, I don't know, Sky. I just don't know. And it kind of snowballed. Miami actually wasn't as bad. I went back and watched that game. Detroit, Seattle, and then the grand crescendo, obviously the Packers game. And I'll say this. There's going to be people out there who Dak sucks, whatever. Let's get to the why that game happened. I've said this and I'll continue to say this. There was no time, Sky. We said this on the draft coverage. We'll say it now. And we'll say it until the season starts. There was no time in that Green Bay game that I ever thought Dallas would get a stop. Ever.
No, and then there'll be people that'll say, well, they got to stop on the second possession and then Dak threw interception. Sure. Yeah, you're right. That did happen. But there was still 50 minutes left in the game, and they didn't get one stop after that.
Listen, even after that stop, I still didn't believe it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when we watch football long enough, Scott, to understand like that he got us dialed up. Like when you playing against those guys at offensive coordinator, when they can dial you up. And unfortunately,
bro,
the Shanahan's family doesn't do good against Mike Zimmer, but they do great against Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn. Who was it? Aaron Jones came out and said, man, these dudes is front runners. And, we kind of look at that and say, oh, he's talking. No, he's being truthful. Let's be real. The defense was a one-trick pony, and that one-trick pony relied heavily on what? The offense.
Yes.
The offense. If the offense got out to a fast start, if they got up big, then yes. So I hear a lot of people that say, oh, well, not a lot of people that hate the quarterback. Well, if the defense isn't doing X, Y, Z, then he's not X, Y, Z. No. Let's be real. Let's look at 2023. If the offense got this thing going and got a big lead, the defense was able to play with their ears pinned back. Didn't have to worry about the run game where they were weakest at, and the game became a little bit easier for them. But when a game relied on the defense and it was a little bit ugly and muddy, and you needed to, hey, we need you to step up here. The offense ain't got it right now or at the beginning. It kind of looked ugly. Yes. Right? It didn't just look ugly for the offense. It looked ugly for the defense. You talk about Buffalo. You talk obviously the Green Bay game. The San Fran game got out of hand. They never really knew how to be a muddy, physical, will win this game, even in the tight game. Defense, 19-21, 24-17. Like they hardly, yes, they beat Detroit now, but let's be real. What happened at the end of that Detroit game? The defense, they just ran right down the field.
They did.
Right? Miami. Well, Scott, Miami, the defense played. Oh, really? What happened when you needed to get a stop? Ran right down the field. After
Dak just drove the ball and they went up, they just walked down the field.
Seattle put up record numbers, I guess, on I guess Geno Smith had a career day. Granted, it didn't end well for him, so that's a good job there. But if you go look at weeks 11 through 18, the Cowboys defense was night and day. You couldn't trust them. And that's why for me, going into the playoffs, I was like 4, 88, 87, and 20. It's on y'all. I didn't really think this defense will be able to carry them in any single game, and that's tough to do because in the postseason you're going to need one side or the other to carry one side or the other at some point.
Yes. Yes, Sky, and again, me and you texted, and this was one of the years where I said I'm not gonna go off the handle. I really just thought that Dan, it goes back to what you said about the pitcher, and that to me is, I don't know, and I'm not gonna turn this into a Dan Quinn bashing session. We're
No,
gonna move forward, and we're gonna talk about how Mike Zimmer brings life in the personnel. So, one of my first questions, Sky, and I was on with Vach. I've been on with you, and actually, we've kind of like talked about it, but I really want to dive deeper, and you did a deep dive on it. The safety play and what Mike Zimmer likes to do with his safety. So, Sky, I'll pull up this film now, or do you kind of want to talk through it before I get to it?
however you want to do it, my man. I can
Okay.
tell you how I believe they play the safeties, and then you can pull it up and give your analysis on it because I also like to hear you talk them
Yes.
X's and O's too when you breaking down the film. But
Yes.
I think the safeties. I said this before my show. The safety
Can everybody see that, Sky? I'm sorry. Can you see this?
I cannot.
Okay. Okay. I'm not Sky with it, y'all. On the there we go. Let me okay, window. Okay, there we go. We're good now. All right. There we go. Okay. We should be good. Sky, you got it?
Yeah. There you go. There you
Let me
go.
get full screen. Okay. So Sky, let's talk to what you see safety wise, and then I'll just kind of let this run.
We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier where the picture changes. That's something that Dan Quinn keep doing that. Mike Zimmer.
I know it's gonna happen all year, bro.
Yeah, man. That's something that Mike Zimmer loves to do, and he does it with his safeties. He'll show a single high and he'll drop back into two high. He'll show a two high, and the guy will drop down a single. And it requires a very smart, aware, and veteran safety. Really, you see Harrison Smith is usually that move around guy. Where in this case and scenario is Anthony Harris. He's the guy that kind of just stays on the roof or stays back because Harrison Smith was at one point in time one of the best free safeties in the league. But man, I love watching it because if you go look at the effect it has on the quarterback pre-snap, they'll get some line of scrimmage. You see Jared Goff there trying to change the play. Hey, come inside. Now, the beautiful thing about this is it's not just the safeties. Whenever a movement happens, a cornerback now, his assignment changes. His responsibility changes. I go from playing off to now playing tight and getting a bump and run type of situation because I know I got this safety rotating back. So it's a lot of chess game happening behind the linebackers where the quarterback, is affected before the snap even happens. Then boom, the snap happens or right at the snap. And in this scenario, this is where the pass rush is mirrored. This is a beautiful an example of how all this can come together.
Oh, look at Harrison
because if you pause that right there,
yep.
If you pause that right there,
I'm gonna take it back a little bit, Sky. Or is this good?
That you can take it back a little bit if you want. On the left side of Aaron Rodgers, that's Devontae Adams as the receiver. When Harrison Smith was down in the box, what you think, Mike, or what you think Aaron Rodgers is thinking? 1-on-1, and you're bumping, you're pressing. Oh, I'm going to Devontae Adams. But soon as Harrison Smith rotates back, there's probably something they got going on saying, okay, if he's rotating back, you can't run deep. So now Devontae Adams has to run a shorter route, and he's basically taking out the play. So Aaron Rodgers knows, can't go over there. He's double. Let me come the other way. But when he comes the other way, he'll see if you let the play run more. And this is a beautiful play by Anthony Harris. Anthony Harris's hips open up to take out the outside boundary wide receiver. But because of the scheme, he sees the slot wide receiver trying to attack the middle of the field. He picks him up. Aaron Rodgers has to do what? Hold the ball an extra second, and the pass rush gets home. But the pass rush gets home because of what happened with the games in front. But we'll get to that in another scene. But the games in the back foots, man, is what makes this play work, in my opinion.
I'm gonna say something too, Sky, right here, pre-snap. So this is great stuff. So with Harrison bailing to that too high look, if you notice at the top, he's also inside shade. So he's taking away anything they want to go quick. I like that. Those are just a little, you're right, Sky, it's a little nuance within with Zimmer's game. And I also was doing some digging. The first scene that you had brought up, at Jared Goff with the Rams, people have to remember that offense was the best. It was them and the Chiefs that year. I think they both put up like 50 in that game.
Monday
The
Night
best
Football, yeah.
offense, and he stopped, just completely blanked them. Like they couldn't move the ball on the Vikings. And so I remember that when I was reading up on Zimmer's scheme. So that was really good. This is a good find right here, Sky. These clips of who he wants to be.
And that's the back end. If you go to this part right here and pause it, again, this is why I think his scheme is I wish we had him a little bit longer. We'll see what happens after the year, because these guys played together a long time. So they kind of just knew how to play off each other. But anyway, so what makes this beautiful is that you see Harrison Smith at the line of scrimmage. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in the line of scrimmage. And if you go from the center to his left, there's 4. And you're a coach, you know this. When you're trying to set up protection, it's about a numbers game. So yes. Aaron Rodgers in the center are setting up the protection if you let it go here a little bit, and they're going to slide the protection to the left to match the numbers game, right, Foots? Because if you got 4 people over there, well, we need to make sure we got 4 guys to protect. But
yeah, he just did it right there. Yeah,
he just did it, right? And he said at the last second, you pause it, you got Harrison Smith peeling back, but you still have the protection sliding left, but they don't need to. But it's too late because that last second changing the picture. So now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, you got 5 guys blocking 4 dudes over here, and you got a tight end on Danielle Hunter 1-on-1. And what you think is going to happen?
Come on, man.
You know, and that's something that Mike Zimmer talked about. Mike was like, look, there's going to be times where we're going to set up things for Micah Parsons to have a 1-on-1, and there's going to be times where we use Micah Parsons to dictate where protection is going to go, so other players have to step up and eat off of that. And that's something that didn't happen a whole lot over the last few years, in my opinion, at a dynamic rate. And you might say, well, Scott, he got a lot of sacks. This is true. Micah had 14, and 15 sacks or whatever it was over the last 3 seasons, and you didn't really have that other dynamic rusher to kind of match that energy. Well, somebody's going to have to, because Mike Zimmer is going to set them up to do it.
This is what we call high level stuff, man, by Skywalker Steele, and this is why this is my bro. And Scott, don't bury that Micah lead, because we're gonna get there. Now, what Skywalker said and what he showed you was Harrison Smith, rangy player.
Yep.
Anthony Harris, rangy player. Sky, I'm not asking you to go on record, because we still got to let camp happen. We have to let all these things happen. I'm not going to do that to you. We know our stuff gets everywhere. However, we know that with Zimmer, he wants 2 guys, and to me, and feel free to disagree, that can cover grass, right? Who would those 2 guys be to you? And it could be multiple guys, but I do know this. 3 linebackers will be playing a lot of football for this defense, in my opinion. And now we got to see it. So that means to me there will not be 3 safeties on the field a lot. Who, Sky? What? Who? Let's kind of just kind of talk through it.
Yeah. I look, it's going to be. I love our safety room, and this conversation been going on all off season amongst the community. I think automatically Malik Hooker is probably going to be a guy, because he's that veteran dude. I think he's a stabilizing force back there in a sense. And then obviously you got Dono, who has the money, right? Both Malik and Dono have got paid. But I think there's a slight misconception about Dono, in my opinion, and I'm probably on an island here, because we look at Donovan Wilson and we think a kamikaze, because that's what he is, right?
A box player.
He's a box player, because that's where Mike Zimmer. I'm sorry, I'm doing it again. That's where Dan Quinn.
Now you said Dan.
I mixed it back up. That's where Dan Quinn had him, right? He had him around the line of scrimmage. He's fantastic around the line of scrimmage. But I urge you guys to go back a little bit with Donovan Wilson in his rookie year, Donovan Wilson in year 2, and a little bit in 2021, but he got hurt. But Dono he was playing a lot free. He was covering ground. But this was when he would play a little bit more half field. And that's
Yes.
what Zimmer is going to do. Zimmer's not going to ask Donovan Wilson to play on the roof like J-Ron Curse was doing by himself back there, which was asinine. But if Donovan Wilson brings his hat right to camp and he wins that job, which he has a very shot to, but I think they should break the pool so they can say whoever wins wins. But I'm just saying this: I wouldn't sleep on Donovan Wilson being, and I know this might sound crazy because Harrison Smith is a free safety, but being a guy that they do bring up to the line of scrimmage, then peel back or
Yes.
blitz and things like that. Because when Donovan Wilson was a blitzer, used under Dan Quinn, he was the best blitzing safety in the National Football League. When they blitzed Donovan Wilson in 2020 under Mike Nolan, he was a feared blitzing safety. And if you go look at how Zimmer used Harrison Smith as a blitzer, he blitzed him a good bit. Now it does require you to be smart, and he's a veteran and he is smart. He's been around. So I say all that to say is at the start of camp, I think it will be Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, right? But Wanye Thomas to me is arguably your most complete safety from a talent standpoint. The one thing that I feel like we just have to see under Mike Zimmer is does he have the bandwidth as really only a 2-year player? I know this is third year, but he's only really played 1 year full time in defense. His first year he didn't play much. Does he have the mental bandwidth to be where he needs to be in Mike Zimmer's scheme? You know what I mean, Foots? Because if he's not where he needs to be, he won't play. But from a talent standpoint, I think he's arguably your most well-rounded guy. I think he can cover ground, he can come down in the box, he can tackle, he can play man if you need to slide him in the slot. I'm really high on Wanye Thomas, and I think he should get a legitimate shot because if so, he could take somebody's spot, in my opinion.
I'll say this. I think that if he can pick the scheme up mentally, he's just going to find his way on the field. And what that looks like, I don't think anybody knows right now, and that's okay. I'm with you. I'm going to caution myself. I've said it. Then I go back and forth. I said, man, you know what? It's irresponsible to just say Donovan is off the field, because we also got to think about what was Dan Quinn asking him to do.
That's what I meant, Foots. He was old to play in the box that much. I would have much rather, when I saw J-Ron on the roof, like, what, put Dono back there if you want to do it. It should be Malik. But if it's not Malik, why the hell do you have J-Ron Curse playing so much single high safety and asking him to diagnose these? That's not his game.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And bro, not only are you right, I think you're spot on. And I think that's the part where we'll see it. We'll see. We'll get a look early on. I want to give it. I told everybody I'm going to give it about 5 games to just see, do these guys know what's going on? How are they playing? And this is the thing that I think people have to realize. Mike Zimmer is not coming into a defense that doesn't have talent.
Right.
Like, I want people.
Dan Quinn in 2020 where he had to rehaul the whole thing. Yeah.
Understand this. You have 3 bona fide all pros on this defense. Bona fide. Trayvon Diggs healthy is an all pro.
Yeah.
It's not just the interceptions. Dan, now you got
Ron
me doing Sky.
I got you,
Thank you, Sky. Now Mike Zimmer. I don't think he's ever had a corner quite as good as Trayvon. Now he did have
T. New.
He had Newton. He had Newman, and then he had what's my guy that went to Florida State? But the point is, he obviously had Dion. He had Xavier Rose.
Yeah, so, in early Dallas, Dion.
Yeah, so he had Dion. So I guess that negates kind of that. But the point is to have 2 guys, like, these are guys. These aren't projections. This isn't corners who we think can do it from the draft. No, these are guys who have done it on the pro level. Yes, they've gotten Bieber to the NFL. These are guys. Deron Bland's a guy. And obviously Micah Parsons is Micah Parsons. Yeah. You can say what you want. You can say he's not a leader. We can get into all of that. The guy has been an all-pro every year he's been in the league. So I don't buy into all this other crap. And if you don't want Mike on his team, you don't want to win games. Yeah, that's another. We won't even open up that. So that's 3 guys, right, Sky? These are 3 athletes that I think Mike Zimmer will look at it and say, I don't actually have to change everything. I just have to change a few things. And it goes back to what you said about the discipline chaos, and I respect that so much.
You
Sky.
know, something else he said that as we're talking about this, picking up the scheme and whatnot, he mentioned communication. He said the first
Yes.
thing that we're going to teach them is kind of the nuances and changing up some technique things. Even with the great Trayvon Diggs, he kind of went on record saying, "Hey man, this guy's phenomenal, aggressive, but he's not as technically sound," which sounds crazy because he's an all pro, but that's not. And Al Harris is amazing, but in the defensive backs coach, who was it? Our safeties coach or secondaries coach, Joe Witt.
Joe Witt,
Joe
yeah.
Witt, they did a fantastic job, but their mindset was, "Hey, just get the ball."
Mm-hmm.
Zim's mindset is not going to be, "Hey, just get the ball."
He started
So,
as a DB coach.
yeah. Oh, that's his baby.
Zim. Yeah,
Yeah,
Secondary's his baby.
he's gonna. You'll probably see Zim working with the secondary more than any unit.
Yeah.
Seriously, just like you saw Dan Quinn working with the defensive line, because Dan Quinn is a defensive lines coach. That's how he came in the league. That's what he was in college, and he's a defensive lines guy. But I say that to say is, Zimmer brought up, "Hey, we're going to teach them, the hows. We want them to be able to communicate. We want them to learn our language. So when they come off the field, if they see something, they're speaking our language. It's not, oh, well, he's doing this and he's doing that. No. Let's figure this thing out now so we can make the adjustment to go back out there." Whereas, again, this is not a Dan Quinn bashing show.
Yeah.
But Dan Quinn didn't really have a nuanced defense. He really
No.
didn't have a deep playbook either, according to people in the locker room.
That's real.
It was, we're running the same handful of plays. That's
you
it.
get what you get.
And
Yeah,
it
the
was
menu
really
was small.
not much of an adjustment. That's not going to be Mike Zimmer.
I think the adjustment part is what. So I liken it to, Mike McDonald was the hottest name in the offseason. Ravens former
Rightfully
defensive,
so.
rightfully so. Ravens former defensive coordinator, now head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. If you ask anybody in league circles, Zimmer is the godfather of that style of defense. And so, I think people got scared off because he's an older defensive coordinator. And I get that part, but I also want people to understand, he's had some really good units. I don't know if he's a head coach, but I do know that he's had some really good units. So, Sky, I want to get into two more before I let you go. This has been amazing work. Sky, I want to ask you this, and you don't have to go into depth if you don't want to. What draft pick benefits from Mike Zimmer? What current player on the roster benefits from Mike Zimmer? It could be somebody we're not thinking about. It could be a draft pick that we're not thinking about. Just off the top of your head, who do you think benefits from Mike Zimmer?
Talking about a rookie draft pick, not like
Yes.
2023.
If you want to go 2020, if you let's say it was a guy that was drafted last year, because let's be honest, you didn't really get much from anybody on that class defensively. No. Overshown looked great in the preseason, but so you can go there as well.
In 2023, it has to be Mozzie, right? Like Mozzie Smith would have to be a benefactor of this, and I think he will. Just a matter of how much, because being better in year 2 for Mozzie is quite literally just putting up
being decent, right?
Being okay, he was technically being better technically, and from a technical standpoint, fundamental standpoint, hands right, feet's right. That's being better. It may not translate to much of anything, but it's better, right? So that class, I think, even 310 Mozzie will be better. Just from a I know that's a whole different animal.
That's a show.
Hey. But Mozzie's the easy answer. The rookies in 2020, this 2024 class, I think Nealon will probably benefit the most, because he and you listen to Coach Z Scanina, he talks about sliding him inside on passing downs and playing some strong side end, hence D-Law's situation. So maybe what this does is it gives D-Law a little bit more of a breather, because D-Law, hard for him to get off the field a lot, and look, great player, but he's getting up there. So maybe you can throw Marshawn out there. He plays the run very well, and he's got some pass rush upside. But so I will go Marshawn Nealon. But let's stick right there with the veteran. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is going to benefit.
Oh, good one. Great one.
I think I brought this up Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, I think, will benefit from Mike Zimmer here, where Micah could be Daniil Hunter in
Hmm.
Minnesota, who's the pass rush savant. Drop him back a few times. They're probably not going to drop back Micah too much. And then D Law can be the Everson Griffin of that unit, where he's
Yes.
more of the savvy veteran. He may not be, as dynamic of a rusher as a Neil Hunter, but he can get you 7, 8, 9 sacks. And he's going to play the run. He's going to bring some energy. He's going to be that steady presence opposite of your dynamic young rusher. I can definitely see those two being the Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin of this defense. So, just speaking up front, sticking with Mozzie and those guys, I think veteran wise, Micah and D Law will benefit from Mike Zimmer.
Ooh, that's good, man. And you kind of talked about Micah and how he's going to be used. I think that the Mozzie, it's that's a whole nother show because I think Mozzie with the right mentality, yes. I think that
Yeah, where's he at mentally, right?
Yeah, I think the mixed message of Dan, and you've heard so much in the offseason, so I'm just going to stay away from it because we don't know what he was being told. Again, like we just talked about Dono. I feel better about, honestly, hearing you talk through it, I feel better about Dono in this scheme and being able to do different things because of the pro Dono is and the person he is versus now with Mozzie. I just don't know. And I just want to see it, and I just want to see him
That's
stack good
fair.
days. So I just don't know. And I thought I knew last year because I thought what we were getting was a guy who played hard. We were all excited about the pick, and it's okay. But I love what you're saying there about kneeling because I think on that play you showed some of what Barr did. Micah has some of that ability too in the double A's. Just getting him matched up with
That's
centers,
gonna be so interesting, bro.
right?
Are they going to go back to rookie year Micah, which at this point I don't think you have the same amount of depth from the edge standpoint to
I
do it as
know,
much.
I
You
know.
know, because look, if you pull him away from the line of scrimmage and rushing the passer, you become extremely less dynamic rushing the passer. But if you put him in the
The
middle
middle of your defense.
that's different. So
Yeah,
I think they are going to do that. By the way, I think they're going to move him around on the line of scrimmage, though, Foots.
yeah.
So online scrimmage can mean okay, yeah, he's at linebacker, but he's mugging the gaps and he's blitzing. I don't think we're going to see traditional linebacker Micah Parsons often.
And I'm
I,
okay with that.
yeah, I don't think you're going to see it often. I think that just doesn't seem like there's a way to go. They drafted Maris Leofau. They're high on Demo. They're high on Clark. They signed Eric Kendricks. I feel like those are going to be your linebackers, and they signed another
Keep
linebacker.
Leofau, keep Leofau in your mind because we're gonna
Yeah.
end with him.
Okay.
Keep Leofau in your mind.
Yeah. So, well, Micah, you talk about his usage. I think they're moving him all around. He'll blitz from the A gap, but it sounds crazy, bro. Dan Quinn started a couple years ago saying, "Well, we don't want to keep Micah on one spot of the field because it's easy to take him out." That's exactly
What you
what
did.
they did last year, and I don't think Zimmer's going to do it. I think you'll see Micah on the left, on the right, in the middle, defensive tackle. You'll see him peel back from time to time to throw off the defense. You'll see him doing some stunts and things like that. But they're going to move him around. I just don't think it's going to be linebacker, and a lot of people don't like that.
Scott, this is gonna be the fun part of the defense because when you have a chess piece like Micah, I think that I just don't want to see Micah taking on double teams this year. I don't want to see him getting chipped, beat up. So I think I want to see how Zimmer deploys him on certain downs.
Yeah.
And the scariest thing about it is, bro, like all these people who talk about his leadership or whatever, bro, the guy runs 4.4. He's freaking a tank. Like those guys aren't walking around. And Zimmer knows this. So y'all can say what you want. Zimmer's going to use him accordingly. And this is why I do believe that the Maris Leofau pick and the Marshawn Nealon picks mixed with who Overshown is could leave. So what you said about linebackers being linebackers, yes, I completely agree. But Sky, what do you think about on sub packages, on third and distance, third 6+? Who's going to get the quarterback? Because I believe this, for as good as Micah is on the edge, I think that mug is even better blitzing up the A.
Oh,
He got
half of his
so many.
it's from the middle. Guards can't deal with that man up the middle. Like, how many times did we even see that during the Packers game? By the way, I'm this is a serious question.
We didn't.
Did he blitz a whole lot of the middle?
Bro, he was
Okay,
camped on the edge and
okay,
getting beat up by Tucker Craft,
yeah.
getting beat up by those two tight ends that Green Bay drafted. And it sucked because I'm like, dog, people will get on the internet and say Micah didn't play well. No, he's taking on double teams, he's getting chipped, he's getting triple teamed. Like, yeah, and
Let
that
me
goes
ask you
back
this:
to your
who?
pitcher question.
Yeah,
You're giving LaFleur the same looks. So this is what he's going to do. He's not going to let Micah Parsons beat you if you give him the same look.
and who stepped up when he was dealing with the chips and the doubles and triple or whatever, right? Like who was making the plays in that Packer game?
Nobody.
Okay,
Nobody.
yeah. Zimmer's not here for it. If Micah Parsons is being schemed against
Bro.
or whatever, and you're not stepping up making plays, he's going to put somebody else out there. He's going to do it. Because we know, like you say, man, we want this whole off the field Micah thing. It's wild, the conversation. But on the field, Micah Parsons is one of the most dynamic players. Forget defensive people, players in the National Football League, and teams know that. And Zimmer knows that. So Zimmer's going to scheme it up like he did with Daniil Hunter, but he's also going to scheme it up for Sam. He's going to scheme it up for Nealon and D Law, Overshone, or whomever's out there, right? Kendricks. You are going to have to step it up, right? Oppo. And then when your number is called, Micah, you're going to have to step it up, right? Yeah. Because he's going to put pressure on his guys to be guys. So, I think for these vested veterans, for these high-end players, I think they'll take on this scheme no problem. Where it's going to be wait and see and be patient is with these young guys and these rookies because, some of it is complex and these guys are young. They haven't played at all. So,
yeah. I'll end with this, and I'm going to buy a lot of stock in Amaris Liufau. You know how much I love the player, Sky. I think that everything that we've heard, obviously, Vosh has been on with Broadus. He can't stop raving about the guy. They've all the scouts talked about how smart he is.
Brilliant is the word.
Notre Dame, smart guy. It reminds me a lot of how Joker was deployed as a blitzer. I know. And I know, Sky. I know.
I wanted to double dip. Even when we took Micah, I'm like, go give me JOK or Bolton. I don't give a damn.
Could you imagine?
You
imagine? So I think when it comes to pressure, and you watch some of the issues that I think people had with Liufau in college was, okay, how does he cover? How does he look in space? But when he's playing forward, you can't. There was no denying the player.
Was a monster coming forward. But also, I mean, he struggled a bit in tackling in space, kind of in a hole or whatnot. But I think he'll actually get much better at that. Believe it or not, I do. I think with coaching, right? Exactly. With coaching the scheme, I think he'll be because he's physical. We're not talking about a dude scared to tackle, right? We're just talking about college and the it's a lot of mirror, there's a lot of window dressing. It happens, and I think it gets everybody in college. And these coaches in the NFL are trying to mimic that, and some of them, you get got. That's why I grade the linebackers on a scale nowadays. 5-10 years ago, maybe I might be a bit more harsh on that, but now it's like, hey man, every college is running this window dressy, this type of stuff. It's tough. It's tough when you're a linebacker, But I have faith in Amaris Liufau being. And I said this when we drafted him. I think that is your middle linebacker of the future.
Yeah, I would love for him to sit behind Kendricks, learn coming on packages, go get the quarterback, go play fast. And I think he'll do some of that. And the scary thing is if he becomes a better player in coverage, I completely agree with you. And
he can run, though. I've seen him run with people, the players at the backfield, with the running backs. I've seen him run with the tight ends. And he can run. His coverage numbers are good. Right. Yeah. But it's a matter of does a tape match the coverage numbers? And sometimes, zone coverage maybe might get a little lost here and there. But again, everybody from time to time. That's not anything special. I think Amaris Liufau, if you try to run a running back at him, he'll run right with him. And he'll light his ass up too if he's meeting him at the line of scrimmage.
I'll say this. I did not realize how big Amaris Liufau was.
He's a big athlete. And he plays big. This ain't it's Damone Clark. Not Damone Clark 6'3", 240,
Yeah, this is a different type of an athlete. Now, I want to say this, guy. Um, I I believe that even the kid Harvey, I believe that the Cowboys say, you know what, we're gonna make sure that our linebacker room by default will not look the same as it did last year. Safeties will not be playing linebacker this year. I can tell you that.
No, yeah.
And I'm very excited about that. So Scott, let me ask you this in closing. Is there anything else that you want, any other nugget, anything else that you got on this defense? Because I'm actually excited myself. I think it'll look different, but I think by the end of the year, this defense will feel like a real defense that is not so predictable.
My I'm excited from a film junkie, football junkie, X's and O's standpoint because I know that Zim is going to bring that. I am tempering my excitement though until these fools actually address the goddamn defensive tackle room, bro.
How we
Because
stayed away from it.
that is the one position that can this thing could be like a house of cards.
Yeah.
Right? It can be like a house of cards. It look good, but you blow on it because you ain't got to leave his tackles, and it falls down. So I'm excited to just study up on the film and how he deploys things and adjusts. But man, please give me some defensive tackles, Foots. That's you, which is crazy because his scheme relies heavily on his defensive tackles being big and dirty up front, man.
Yeah, and
And you got like 3 of them.
and then what you heard from Mozzie and even how he looks. I don't want to put that negativity on him, but it's the truth, and we got to be real, and that's our job. And I just, you need guys to eat up blocks, and he has to do it at a high clip. And he got moved a lot last year. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
because his technique was off, man. Your foot's
Yeah.
wrong, your hands here. He was definitely getting moved. But then you also saw flashes, right? You saw the flashes
Yes.
of him. But Cowboys need to go get 2 guys, and not put all their eggs in a 7th round pick. You know, Justin Rogers, bless his heart. But if Cowboy fans, if you out here like, yeah, we good because Justin Rogers, come on, man, you on that hopium, man.
Yeah.
It's not fair to put that on him. Justin Rogers should be a reserve player playing behind some veterans to give them a breather. Because what's going to happen to Justin Rogers, right? If he's a starter and he's the guy that has to play 75% of the snaps because you ain't got no bodies, he's going to wear down.
Yeah.
He's going to wear down fast. And who you going to put in there?
Yeah.
Go get you some DTs, man. Stop trying to rely on Justin Rogers and an undrafted dude, Denzel Dak. That's no Foots.
Okay.
Go get you your Linval Joseph, your Michael Pierces, your Dalvin Thomas, and that's who we dealt with, by the way. That's who Mike Zimmer, historically has had up front. He's had big boys and veteran guys and dudes.
Yeah.
Carl Davis?
I don't want to see Carl Davis. No power.
Somebody had me up the other day, was like, what about Carl Davis, man? I said, go pop on the film. Then you won't come back here and ask me about no damn Carl Davis.
He gets moved entirely too easily. And that's, and I was watching, I did a deep dive on our run game. I'm watching Tyler Biadasz just get moved by Reed in the Seattle game. Like, give me somebody who can just play in the backfield. Doesn't even have to get tackles for losses, but just mess a play.
You know what I call it, man? I often liken it to traffic. I always say, I just want, if the defense tackle's job is to take on blocks, I want them to cause traffic in the running lane. You know how look, sometimes I want him to be the guy that's just in the way. Sometimes I want him to actually be the one that hit the other car, right? Be behind the line of scrimmage, T-bone them T-bone them in the backfield. Sometimes I ain't asking you to give me 15 tackles for loss, but if you can cause traffic in that running lane, you know what that does? It makes that running back have to bounce somewhere else. And guess what? Who's waiting there? Marius Leofau, Eric Kendricks, Micah Parsons, Steele. But if you're getting moved, or you're just saying, hey, here's the freeway, go, and now this guard can get to a 205, what's his name? 205 Bell.
Marquise Bell.
And get the tutty, man. So just give me some DTs that's going to take up space, clog the lanes, and cause some traffic accidents.
We want to get DT helping here, and I think the Sky is spot on for that. Skywalker, still, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We got to about an hour, 50 minutes of work. Play this back, guys, and really send this one around, because I think it's one of those that we're preparing you all for. We'll be able to come back to this show. You'll be able to go back to Sky's show, and you'll be able to look for the nuggets throughout camp, blue and white scrimmage, preseason. But then when we get to the season, you won't have these questions because I'm telling you, it's gonna be what we're saying, right? And when it looks like that, we don't panic. Just we want to look for guys. To me, the biggest thing I'm looking for, Sky, is do guys know what they're doing
Yep.
because it is a complex scheme.
That that is going to be one of the biggest, and specifically, I'll say this, in the secondary. I think up front, I think it's pretty cut and dry up front. The secondary, and this is why you mentioned it, and now I'm gonna go on and on. But
Take your time.
having Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs is huge, and Jordan Lewis is huge. These are veterans and young veterans that are heady, smart players that I think will pick this thing up. And having a Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, like this is huge for the back end. Because if you go look at Mike Zimmer's defenses at the end of his time in Minnesota, one of the main reasons why it was not that great was because they drafted terrible, and they drafted terrible in the secondary. They
They did.
drafted bad, bro.
And I know they drafted the
Trey
Clemson corner.
Waynes. Remember Trey Waynes? They
Bad.
drafted him. Anthony Harris moved on.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even as good as he was after
Izzy
a year or
Alexander, I
so.
believe.
Izzy Alexander couldn't do nothing. They didn't have the secondary to keep up, right? And did injuries here and there, but they still had Barr and Kendricks and Daniil Hunter, Everson Griffin and Dalvin Thomason and Michael Pierce. They still had quality front seven. But I'm telling y'all right now, Gunther and Skanina gonna run that front seven for the most part. That secondary gonna be Mike Zimmer's baby, and it requires you to have a little bit of smarts to you.
I'm excited, man. It's so crazy when you talk about Bland. I always have said I like Bland in press man. I love him when he's off because he's smart.
He's
Like
smart,
he
man.
breaks on the ball, and that's another thing. We always had our corners in these receivers' face. That's good for Diggs because he's lengthy. Like Diggs can live in press.
Yeah.
Every corner can't do that.
Diggs got sneaky recovery speed, and then if he doesn't get there, he has the length. Like you said, he knows how to use his length to knock the ball around, down or get the interception. But we just lived and died. We
Yeah,
lived and died with man and press, man. Don't get me wrong. Zim going to press, but Zim's going to press out of a 2-eye shell.
yeah. It's gonna look different.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna look different. Man, Scott, thank you so much for coming on, bro.
I appreciate it. This is fun.
My real brother, man. Me and Scott could do this for 2 hours, but we want to
Yes.
make sure the watchability and like I said, you guys send us around. I don't know if I get to get Scott back on before training camp because once it gets going, it gets going. We normally pick back up around draft season. But I'll call into his shows and he'll
Oh
call
yeah.
into mine.
We'll be seeing each other on here.
Yes.
Again, don't get it twisted. And I know the street's been wanting to get the round table, so I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
at some point, we'll get the round table popping during training camp.
Yeah. I know that we will, but I actually want to do this again. And if you want to have me on for more segments, Skype,
Yes.
we want to peek ahead of some draft stuff because I've been getting caught up on my
Camp,
summer
bro.
scouting. So let me know.
I want to get your camp because I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
This year, well, at least in Oxnard, I don't know how long they'll be here in Dallas. Got the newborn, as you know.
Yeah.
So I'll be here. But if you're there, even if you ain't there, just want to bounce off some of the things we're seeing from afar at camp, and maybe whoever we speak with that is down there. But I definitely want to rap to you about camp because I guarantee you the things we're talking about now, we'll see out there whether somebody's struggling with it or whether somebody's picking it up, greatly. I want to have that conversation with you, bro.
Oh yeah, I could do a call a week with you from camp. I wanna do rookie check-ins with you. Because that's basically our baby draft.
No, that's smart because sometimes rookies can tend to get buried in camp. They tend to get buried. So I'm down with that.
All right, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. You guys make sure you guys hit the like button. You guys make sure that you go subscribe to Sky Steele every morning. If you don't start your day with Sky, I don't know what you're doing. I'm doing 2 videos a week. Once July gets here and camp gets going, I'll be back to 3. And then once the season gets here, I'll be here to 4. I'll be here with you guys for 4. So working hard, man. Love you guys. Thank you so much for coming on, Sky.
Appreciate you, bro. Keep killing it as always, fam. And we'll talk again.
Peace.